Okay. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Public Safety Committee for Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. Welcome, committee members and guests. First item of business, are there any changes to the agenda? Not aware of any. Okay. Next up is public comment. I have 4 blue cards. If anybody wishes to address the committee who has not filled out a blue sheet, they're over there. Happy to have you come. And first person, and I will not read the rules because I assume you read them on the sheet. Ann Johnson, welcome. You can chastise me.
I'm not going to chastise you.
Hey, thanks everybody for allowing me to come here to speak. It's my first time here, so I'm a bit nervous. But I live on Chestnut Street on West Hill. Every time I drive home up Elm Street, a photograph is taken of my car by a flat camera. I drive all over this area, grocery shopping, picking up my kids from school, and driving them to various activities and practices. We have mapped all of the flat camera locations, and my car is photographed anywhere from 4 to 6 times per day, just on average, sometimes more. Flock's AI has created a digital fingerprint of my vehicle, and its movements are stored in a database for 30 days. An entire month of my driving movements are available and searchable to over 100 law enforcement agencies all across New York State. If this isn't mass surveillance, I don't know what is. And I really do. I trust our local police officers and our sheriff. I know they're hardworking public servants. I know they deal with a lot of difficult and stressful situations. But what I don't trust is the use of this technology in the broader political context. We do not have strong data privacy protection laws in this country. And I don't trust Flock, a private company valued in the billions and not open to public audits or public scrutiny. Their motive is profit, and they undoubtedly want a smooth relationship with the federal government. It also really infuriates me that Flock is training their AI algorithms and getting rich from collecting my data without my consent. I also don't trust all the other jurisdictions around the state on whom, because of the data sharing network, I must rely not to use or share my data inappropriately. And I'm kind of just at a loss to understand why a grant and an initiative to reduce gun violence involves the surveillance of me and my neighbors. So I'm here to stand up for my right to privacy, and I'm here for the members of my community who are more likely to be persecuted by a mass surveillance system. So just because it's legal to take pictures of all the cars on the road doesn't make it right. I think our courts and our laws have yet to keep up with this rapidly expanding technology. And if I were you guys, I just wouldn't want to be responsible for the erosion of privacy. It's an absolutely integral part of freedom. So please end the contract with Flock Safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And next up is Katie Church. And typically we just listen to comment, but I did want to advise that we will be having some discussion of Flock. It looks like that's a issue that most of these comments are centered around. The undersheriff and I did have a telephone conversation with a representative from Flock yesterday, and I was going to share some information from that call. And we also, it's anticipated at our next legislative meeting, we'll have representatives of Flock attend. So there'll be opportunities there to get more information. Welcome. Let me just reset my clock. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Katie Church, and I have lived here most of my life. I'm also here to talk about Flock. I'm also here to ask you to end the contract. I feel like it's in direct violation of being a sanctuary county, which is something we've promised. One thing I'd just like to point out is that it's been said that access to Flock is only granted by the sheriff. But in actuality, if you go to just Google Flock Tompkins County, you'll find our portal website, and it lists over 100 agencies that already have been granted access. So it's not that every time somebody wants to look at our cameras, they have to email the sheriff and ask him. They can just look whenever they want. And 6 of those counties have already signed on to 287G, which allows law enforcement to collaborate with ICE and act as ICE agents. So that's just something that we really need to be aware of. It's not as simple as that they need to ask permission. They have permission. And I don't know if y'all have heard recently, but last week, someone who lives in our community, has been working here for quite a long time and living here, went to his immigration appointment in Syracuse and was taken from that. And he's in detention somewhere in Western New York right now. So when we say that ICE isn't here yet or isn't acting here, I think we need to pay attention to what's really going on. We don't exist as our little 10 miles surrounded by, not, whatever else. We are acting in a larger, even global context, and we need to really do a better job of taking care of the people that we said we would take care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Casey Verderosa, if I pronounced that correctly.
You did. Thank you. Hi, I'm Casey Verderosa. I'm the Executive Director of Ithaca Welcomes Refugees, a local nonprofit that helps resettle refugees and immigrants when they come to town to rebuild their lives. And I'm also speaking about the flock cameras. I guess first, on a personal level, as a resident of Tompkins County, I do find it extremely invasive, and as people have spoken very eloquently about, a form of mass surveillance that I'm not sure is entirely appropriate, and which raises alarm bells in my head. And I know that there's sort of a cost-benefit analysis that the Sheriff's Office needs to weigh in terms of the crime prevention or crime tracking, gunshot location factors as well. But I really would urge you to look at the debits in that cost-benefit analysis, because when it comes to refugees and immigrants who have been really by this federal administration dehumanized and called illegal, even if they did follow all the rules coming to the country, and just the rug has just sort of been ripped out from under their feet. I think this administration is committing really atrocious abuses, and it really scares me on behalf of the people that we work with, that ICE could force you to hand over this data. Maybe you wouldn't do it happily, but I don't have any confidence in the federal government not just forcing this data to be shared with them. And I think that should be a really big factor that you take into account. And I would not be in favor of, personally or as a representative of my organization, of the flock contracts being renewed. I would advocate for them to not be renewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry. Could I just add one more thing?
You bet. You bet.
I also was wondering if during the county legislature meeting, if there could be some information presented about the crime statistics related to the use of these cameras and how they've been used in terms of their effectiveness in tracking people who have committed crimes.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Yes. Amanda Kirchgessner, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Kirchgessner. I've lived in this county my whole life, and I'm here to, weave a couple points together that might be worthwhile. Ithaca wants to go electric. Ithaca wants to be a smart city. Ithaca wants to reimagine public safety. Welcome to whole-scale mass surveillance. If you want to reimagine public safety without including officers of the law, members of our community in the conversation, flock safety is what you get. If people don't want to cooperate with law enforcement, flock safety is what you get. Surveillance is the result of reimagining public safety in the absence of law enforcement. In looking at people who put on a uniform every day to keep us safe to the best of their ability. Yes, there have been atrocious abuses everywhere. And in our community, we've seen some of the time those officers removed from their positions. I think it really it's on us to keep each other safe. I don't want to be mass surveilled, but I also walk around with my cell phone in my pocket. I was talking to a state trooper I met last November at the Apple Harvest Festival, and I made an off-the-cuff comment about they've got a book on all of us if they want it. They just have to pull the records. I mean, in this day and age, with the state of cybersecurity, you could put child pornography on any internet-connected device and say, this person looks at child porn. It's easy enough to do. You just have to become somebody that they want to target. And right now we're watching it happen to our friends who immigrated here. Okay, we're seeing them implicated simply for being melanated and probably speaking Spanish as a first language. Okay. But to think that that won't happen to other people who say the wrong thing or don't agree with mass opinion, no. Where do we draw the line? So yeah, I don't want my data tracked and monitored. I like to think I'm a decent person who will do the right thing to the best of my ability in a situation. But I also, I don't know what the solution is if we don't want to talk to one another and actually focus on being honest and transparent with one another about the reality of the situation we're stepping into. We're talking about mass surveillance from Palantir, by and large, because there's some lines even Google won't cross. But, let's have a conversation about it. Let's support the people who actually want to keep us safe. And yeah, I'd love to get some cameras taken down, but that also means we have to cooperate with law enforcement to keep one another safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have one more card. Jared, welcome.
There we go. Okay, so I only found out about this meeting earlier today, so this is going to be a little bit of a stream of consciousness. Amanda, I like what you just had to say about law enforcement, because that was kind of, of course that's all involved with this, but that was really topically related to, kind of this stream of consciousness that I got going here. So public safety and tech corporations have disparate goals. If the police mess up, I can go talk to Sheriff Osborne myself. I can have a face-to-face conversation with someone who is involved with their community. Getting there, stream of consciousness. that's a part of it. Okay, so yeah, if there's something, if there is some abuse that I want to see rectified in this community, I can go to the people who are involved with this community, who have roots in this community, and explain myself and have a conversation with them. But I can't do that with Palantir. I can't do that with some Bay Area, San Francisco venture capitalist investment firm. They are a tech company that is selling a very powerful tool to our public safety officials. And look, I got my issues with how police works, but there needs to be public safety. There needs to be people who keep us safe, whatever that may look like. We've got to work with the police here, but I would rather work with the police here, the people whose their kids go to school here, their wife has a job here, their husband has a job, people who are involved with this community, instead of some venture capitalist, big tech conglomerate corporation. I can't talk to them when there is an issue. This is an entity that is driven by shareholder profit, and that is the only thing that is going to drive a big tech corporation is profit for their shareholders, profit, money. I do not want that to be the driving motivation behind what we consider to be public safety here in Ithaca, in Tompkins County. Public safety, all for it. Let's have a conversation about that. I don't want that driven by profit, especially with something, I don't know. I'm not gonna go on too far of a tangent here. When you put people in prison, they can get low-paying jobs, stamping your license plates or whatever, right? There's a profit motivation behind.
Jared, you're at 3 minutes.
I'm at 3 minutes. Cool.
You can wrap up.
Yeah. I don't want there to be a profit motivation behind things that might put people in prison where they might end up doing more, low-paid labor and stuff. It seems like I want to keep profit and public safety and arrests and all that very separate. That's my time. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to address the committee? Seeing none. All right, we have a little bit of housekeeping, but as promised, we will talk about Flock in just a minute or so. First, we have minutes from August 26, 2025, and Veronica and Shauna, thank you for coming today, so we do have quorum. Could I get a motion on the minutes? Veronica moves, Shauna seconds. Questions, comments? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Great. And then chair's report. I did have just an update. We were planning to have our consultant from CGR, the Center for Governmental Research, come and talk to us with the report on potential ambulance service. And that got delayed for a couple of reasons in that they hadn't finished the report, but then our consultant had some health issues and delayed it. I anticipate we will have that report at our next meeting. Unfortunately, of course, we are in the thick of our budget, and as a practical matter, I don't see us being able to take any action this year in regard to ambulance, so that torch will be passed to those who remain, what to do about that issue. And I anticipate it won't go away, so this report should be really helpful to us. And I'm also hopeful that we as a legislature apply some pressure on New York State to address the financial funding models that are available to us, because right now we really can't do it in an equitable way. But that's for a future legislature to deal with, but we'll have the report next month. And as to Flock, Under Sheriff Olin and I had a chance to speak with a representative from Flock yesterday. We had a fairly long conversation, and I did have a few points I'd want to share, and certainly I'd welcome the undersheriff speaking to the issue as well. I appreciate everybody coming today because this is an important issue, and if you're at all awake, you're watching what's happening on the national level. It's really scary. I don't believe there's a single member of the legislature who doesn't have at least some level of concern about what ICE is doing and how they're doing it. We do not want that type of law enforcement behavior in our county. And I think that's clear across the board of the legislators as well. And it extends to the use of this particular tool. As you know, we have passed a resolution regarding our involvement and our level of cooperation with ICE, and that is we will do what we are legally required to do. We will not do more. We will not sign that kind of agreement to provide additional assistance to ICE. And New York State has executed a very similar order from that direction, which applies to all of the counties, in my understanding, in New York State. With that said, Flock has some real benefits. Somebody mentioned the, cost-benefit analysis. It has done some very good things in our community, and Under Sheriff Olin is prepared to speak to those issues. But I'd also just add a few items. Any use of the system is transparent and it's tracked. No officer can access this information without a case number and being able to express the reason why they need that information. There is some high-profile cases, and I brought them up with the Flock representative. He knew about every one of them, and there weren't many across the country. There were a couple instances out in, I believe, Oklahoma, where Flock was used in a matrimonial, where an officer tapped into the system to track their spouse or ex-spouse. And the one officer is in jail for doing that, and another, I believe, lost their job. But, that's not an acceptable use, and it wouldn't be here. And I'm trying to remember what the other one was. I think that was in Texas. Jen, do you remember what the other one was? Oh, that's right.
The story was that it was used to track down a woman who was looking to get an abortion in a state where it was legal.
Right, right. And what the case was there is the family had reported this as a missing person. And they used all, as police would in a missing person investigation, they would use all the resources, and they used Flock, but they weren't using it to try to find somebody who was having an abortion. But again, that's a real danger with Flock, and so we have to be really careful about that. And abuses can occur. But again, Flock is a tool, like any other law enforcement tool, like a gun or a taser or radios. For years, patrol cars have license plate readers, and they've been used for years. This is the difference here is putting them on static poles. So they're reading a lot more licenses. That's absolutely true. But it's not a new technology to the extent that it's recognizing the plates. Flock does not have facial recognition capability, and what he said yesterday was they have no present intent to build that system, and it would be a pretty heavy lift to try to build it. They don't own or share the data. It is our data. And I thought I asked a pretty interesting question, which was when they built Flock, why didn't they follow the model that most other corporations are using? One of our guests today talked about how corporations are tracking pretty much, or more than one of you talked about how corporations are tracking pretty much everything we do. And they own the data, and they adopt that model so that they can resell the data. For Flock, they could make a lot more money if they kept the data, gave us the service for free, which is the typical model, and then they did with it what they wanted. They could resell all our data. They can't do that under this contract. So they're pretty different from other corporate entities. With that said, I think we should be very concerned about what corporations are doing with our data all day long. And we should be having a national conversation about that, and we should be thinking about adopting European standards for protecting our information. We're not doing that, and we should. As a model, I think the Flock model is far better, where we own that locally and we control it. They cannot share it. That's what he said yesterday. We can test them on that proposition, you know, but that's what he said. I'd also say that other police agencies in the county have separate systems. If the county decided not to have Flock, Flock wouldn't go away. That it would just be our system would go dark. But I believe Cornell has it, Ithaca College either has it or is getting it. Trumansburg has it, and of course, Lansing and the city. Those cameras would continue, so you'd have to try to do something on an entire basis. What I would like to see us do is to get a memorandum of understanding among each of the police agencies operating in our county that we all agree we will use it under the same circumstances in very controlled ways. And that, I think, is the extent of the items I recall from our conversation yesterday. But Jen, you had some specific instances where Flock had been used in the community.
Yeah, sure. Some of those are highlighted on our Transparency Hub. Particularly, we've used it successfully to retrieve numerous stolen vehicles, locate some missing persons or vulnerable adults. And most recently, we were able to retrieve another stolen vehicle. The driver of that stolen vehicle also had warrants out for violent crimes. So we were able to apprehend a violent criminal that was also in our community. So in the short time period that our cameras have been up and running, we have seen success with it. I know that the debate between the right to privacy and not wanting to be constantly surveilled is not a new debate, and I can appreciate that. I also recognize that the tension and the urgency around this topic has kind of come up just based on our federal administration. I could appreciate those concerns. But in law enforcement, we work with numerous different tech companies, whether it be Motorola or Axon. Flock is not the only one. This technology just happens to be kind of in the forefront, so I think a lot of the concentration is on it. But we have, law enforcement in general has relationships with other third-party tech companies that have proven useful in public safety. The sheriff and I believe wholeheartedly that Flock does enhance our ability to provide public safety to this community, but we also recognize that there are valid concerns. We've tried to meet with everyone that we can and listen to them and really narrow down our policy and make our Flock system as restrictive as we can to try to alleviate some or mitigate some of those concerns, but also not take away the functionality of it. Otherwise, the cost benefit again just isn't there. So I'm more here to answer questions if they have them, but I really do hear people's concerns. But I do believe that Flock is a technology that will help us enhance public safety in our community as long as it's responsibly used. And I tend to agree with Rich that perhaps a county-wide MOU would be a good basis, a good step to kind of start that.
Yeah. Shauna, I see your hand, but Jen, just because we talked about it yesterday, you brought up there were a couple unsolved homicides that you think that a system like Flock may have really made a difference on. And, you know, without, of course, this is, you can't tell what would have happened otherwise, but I thought there were some interesting thoughts there.
No, I think the unfortunate murder of Jajor Gandy, I think if we had a Flock camera and relatively in those areas, it would have given us some evidence to go on. You know, I obviously can't say that it would have led to an arrest, but it would have given us, it would have been an investigative tool, a very useful investigative tool, just based on the location and the time of the crime. I think that would have been a huge piece of evidence. And then there was a very high profile domestic kidnapping that ended up going out of state and ending in fatalities that I think the use of Flock would have helped hopefully maybe have it come to a different resolution at the end. I think in both of those cases, I think Flock would have assisted law enforcement.
Yeah. Shauna and Matt, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd sure love to get your thoughts if you have any. But go ahead, Shauna.
Yeah, I was wondering if we accept the grant funds, the GIVE grant funds, is there anything else that we can use those funds for if we decide not to go forward with Flock?
There is some hotspot policing, and that has been relatively impactful, if I can use that word, which I don't really like, but impactful in regard to the gunfire incidents that were happening in the city.
But what is hotspot policing?
I could speak to that as
yeah,
well.
Please.
So this year, the Ithaca Police Department took over the GIVE grant. So they're the ones who submitted the plan that had to get approved by DCGS. When they submitted that plan, they already allocated this portion of the money to go towards the Flock system. So my understanding is that they would have to amend their plan to DCGS and get approval to use the money in a different way. And we all know how the state functions. That might not be timely and it might not be approved, but ultimately it would have to be something that the City of Ithaca Police Department submitted to DCGS.
So would it also be the city that would take down their cameras as well?
My understanding is that the City of Ithaca's cameras are paid for out of their department budget, and they do not use GIVE grant funds to pay for their contract. That's my understanding. I could have that wrong, but my understanding is that their cameras come out of their department budget and that the GIVE funds are not used to pay for their contract.
Thank you.
So I do not believe it would impact their cameras.
Okay.
I guess I'd add to that, Shauna, that we could maintain the gunshot detection system likely, but it would be far less effective because what it's supposed to do is it detects a gunshot and then immediately tells you where the cars are around where that gunfire was, because I think the statistic is 70% of gunfire is coming from cars. People shooting out of cars. But correct me if I'm wrong, Jen.
I couldn't speak to the statistics of it, but I do agree that just having the Ravens would be kind of a useless tool because they are supposed to kind of work together to get the most benefit.
Thank you. Matt.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
And I guess I asked you up here because so much of what I think is important here is public trust in our local government in how we are thinking about flock. So, but I don't want to put you on the spot unduly.
Absolutely. First off, I can think of at least a couple more cases that flock would have helped with in terms of homicide investigations, unsolved, where that would have been very helpful data. You know, you talk about trust in the court system and the public safety system. Juries expect today to see video. They expect to see surveillance video of an event happening. If you don't have it, it's very difficult to prove a case in today's environment. Not impossible, but you know that's the expectation. There are so many cameras everywhere you go. I have thought a lot about flock, and I have the same concerns that many people in the community do as far as sharing our data. I don't want our data to leave Tompkins County for any purpose. And if we could craft a way to use that tool, which is an investigative lead, it's a way to solve crimes that are serious crimes, people shooting guns in our community. And anecdotally, I don't know the statistics, but anecdotally, I think it's true that most gunfire does come from cars, and then the car's gone. And if nobody saw it, then you have no leads. And if somebody saw it and they don't want to cooperate, you have no leads. So that's a challenge that we face often in criminal cases, is proving the case with competent evidence that where someone is willing to cooperate. And this is a tool that we use. We would never rely entirely on this tool or other tools like facial recognition, which is accessible in a very limited capacity. I would never base a prosecution on those things alone. It's a lead that allows the police to follow up on an investigation, to uncover more stones to try to solve a crime. But it's not something we would never say, okay, the flock says this car was there for a shooting, so we're going to charge the owner of that car. That's not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not even probable cause to charge someone with a crime. So as a tool, I think it's very valuable and has shown results in the sense that the shots fired incidents in the last couple of years have significantly decreased. And I think that the give detail is a large part of that, but flock is a large part of that as well. So, I mean, I don't have the answer. And if it meant that we couldn't stop our data from leaving Tompkins County, I would have a real problem. But I think we have to be able to figure it out. We have to be able to use the tool for public safety without compromising the safety of our residents and people who want to feel safe from the federal government here.
Yeah. Thanks. Veronica.
I'll keep to just 2 questions, because you're making a face like I shouldn't do more.
No. This is the discussion.
Yeah.
Do not feel constrained.
Okay.
I'm just making faces.
Okay.
I don't know what I was looking like.
Okay,
Go ahead.
great. Maybe I just don't look at you enough because you're sitting next to me. One of the questions is, we keep hearing that we own the data, but what does that even mean in terms of, like, the data is digital stuff that could be copied, shared, like downloaded. What? Oh, well, you're probably not allowed to talk to us right now. But oh, well, I'm asking a question generally and realizing I might not get the answer specifically right now. I'm thinking of, I mean, it's totally not the same thing, but I'm thinking of the NFT craze where like you could get an NFT that says you own a piece of art, but like, what did that even mean? Who cared?
Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang, that's the album, right?
What?
That's in litigation right now, the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, sillier and somehow involving a lot more money than this, but like, I guess I'm inclined to treat the affirmation from all sides that we own the data as meaningless. Pretty meaningless when others, and in particular, a very capable of highly connected, created the system in the first place, big tech company is one of the people who has access to all of it.
Okay.
So does it mean anything? Or I can throw out my unrelated
I guess
question too.
I think the question is for Jen. My office doesn't have access directly to the flock data. We rely on the police. When there's a case that is generated that then creates data that is evidence about some crime that happened, then we receive that from law enforcement agencies. But we don't even have access to the flock data.
But I think your question is more on a philosophical level of, does the law matter? And I guess with growing up and working for some time as a lawyer, I do believe in the law and rule of law. And maybe that's changing. There's certainly things on the national level that are very troubling about rule of law. But at present, I think that we can say ownership of data means something, yes, in my mind. But you can disagree.
Yeah. And I could speak to that in general terms. Obviously, I think a flock representative will be at the next legislative meeting, and they can probably give you a more concrete answer. But for me, that means that flock employees of flock staff can't access our data. They can't see it. They own the algorithm and house it, but they can't get access to the data. And if we want to share that data with an outside law enforcement entity, that approval and access has to come from the sheriff's office, not from flock itself.
So is it like they aren't allowed to access it, or they like literally can't without doing some hacking or password stealing or something?
Yeah, he said they did not have access yesterday.
Yeah,
but we can.
I know the flock representatives I've had meetings with, and it's been at least a dozen different representatives. They cannot see our data. Like they wouldn't even know how to get to it. They don't have the authority to get to it. But I would let them answer that, more concretely. But we've asked them that numerous times. So my understanding is that they can't access our data. They obviously own the algorithm and help store the data, but they can't get access to it, and they cannot share it without, that has to come directly from us.
That makes sense.
And I guess I'd just add to that I think from our conversation yesterday, Flock very much does not want to be in the middle of the conversation between local governments and ICE. They do not want to be the pinch point, and not having access to the data serves them.
And I would draw a similarity to the CAD data. So Dewar houses all of the information for every law enforcement agency in the county, right? But each law enforcement agency is the data owner of their information. So the Department of Emergency Response can't decide to share our data or Cayuga Heights' data if they wanted to. If they've got a request from some other agency, they would have to direct them to whatever representative in Cayuga Heights or the sheriff's office to get approval to share our data. So to me, it's somewhat similar to that.
Okay, thank you.
Had more questions?
Yes, the other, I don't know if it's one or two questions, but when the money for our flock subscription cameras whatever, all the stuff it includes is coming from the GIVE grant, which is for gun-involved violence elimination. But some of the successes of the flock system that have been, like, I was gonna say touted and like are real, have nothing to do with gun violence, like finding missing people. So I guess my question is sort of, can someone make that make sense? And or if we go back, like we're having the conversation about the cameras, but then if we also shift back to the conversation about the GIVE grant, would it be possible to have some sort of, I guess, either public or private meeting talking about with the various GIVE recipients? Like I know that you all, like Jen and the sheriff's office, have communication with IPD, who is the lead GIVE grant recipient right now, right? And I know that at least the first time around, our probation department was involved in it. I don't know, Matt, if you were like on paperwork involved, but I remember there were lots of involved entities and like lots of pieces, things that were funded by it. There was some like these big tech tools, some hotspot policing detail. There was some sort of like community engagement, like Brothers Keeper style. It might not have been that programming involved. I asked Derek about that once and he said he didn't like know details about it because that was like somewhere in the city's wheelhouse. But I guess, is it possible to get a picture of like, what is it overall that we in this community are doing with the GIVE money and what's its effectiveness at reducing gun-involved violence? Either in the couple years of the grant we've had and or going immediately forward.
Well, I could try to speak to that, and I might just have to ask you to reiterate some of those points. So I'm going to try to answer all the questions if I can remember. So the tier that the state identified us in, that tier also is targeted towards just any violent crime. So while it's labeled gun involved violence elimination, the tier that we're in is really, the goal is to help eliminate or reduce any violent crime. So it's not just targeted towards that. Obviously, finding and locating missing persons or vulnerable people is just a benefit, an additional benefit to having flock. So I think that's why DCGS approves flock as a technology that they're okay with allocating these funds for. And then as far as the partnerships for GIVE, yes, probation is still very involved, and so is the district attorney's office. As far as law enforcement agencies, it's the sheriff's office and IPD. The state police are also involved, now that they're not particularly named in the GIVE application because it's a state agency, and just the way the state works, they don't allow the state police to kind of receive state funding for things. So while they're not named in the application, they are partnering with IPD and the sheriff's office with this initiative. So I'm trying to think, as far as what is allocated in the application, I would reach out to the chief at IPD or FOIL it. I'm sure the application I know the application has to specifically spell out what they're putting the money towards. I know that just off the top of my head, I know that they use the funds to pay for their data analyst down there, as well as do some community engagement. I'm not sure what it looks like this year, but they do obviously allocate some money towards some sort of community engagement piece. And then there is the hotspot policing, which is usually partnering an IPD officer with a sheriff's deputy or a state trooper. And then obviously some of it goes towards this flock technology. And was there another pice of your question?
I was going to add, just if I can, that, and this goes to Shauna's question earlier, probation gets the money too. Not enough to fully fund the special requirements for supervising people caught up in GIVE, because they take a higher level of supervision, but there is some of the grant money applied there. More questions?
Thank you. And Jen, I think that did answer pretty much all the parts of my question. That, yeah, I was still wondering about the, like, could we someday have maybe a community meeting with all the involved people and ideal, like, intended beneficiaries of the GIVE grant? But I'm not going to ask for that this second because there's a lot of more basic info.
Yeah.
Like,
No, and obviously the sheriff and I would be really open to that. I wouldn't want to step on any toes and speak for anyone. Obviously, IPD is the applicant and they're the holder of the GIVE grant this year. So I would rely on them to give a specific answer. But if that can't happen with all of us, the sheriff and I are absolutely open to having as many meetings as we need to. But I don't see any reason why IPD wouldn't be open to those as well.
Okay.
One of the major principles of GIVE is procedural justice, which includes involving the community and getting the buy-in of the community, helping them understand why things are happening in the ways that they're happening in the community. So I think that I would guess that IPD would be very much in favor of that kind of information session.
Yeah.
And usually a representative from DCJS attends. Matt can speak to that. They usually attend the larger GIVE meetings, so I'm sure that we could probably get a representative from DCJS that might come down and also try to answer some questions. And then I remembered one other aspect of your question was, is there something to articulate the successes of the GIVE program? DCJS does put out quarterly reports of how gun-involved violence, the grant has reduced gun-involved violence in certain tiered programs. And I would be more than happy to forward those to the legislators if they'd like to see them.
Yeah, that might be a useful thing to talk about at the legislature meeting when Flock is there. If we can do it in a...
It's because the tier we're in, they're not as detailed. Tier 1, where they're specifically targeted towards gun-involved violence, like larger cities like Syracuse and Rochester, those reports are a lot more detailed. The tier we're in isn't as detailed, but it still gives some good information.
Yeah, okay. We probably should move on because we've got other items to cover in our meeting, but this is a really good discussion and it will continue. And to the members of the public, thank you for coming in. Thanks for telling us what you think. This is a delicate subject. So, okay. If we move county administrator's report. Bridget, welcome.
Thank you, Rich. I do not have a further update. You provided a nice overview of where we are at with our CGR study, but we do have a resolution included in the agenda packet if we wanted to move that.
Okay, this is contingent fund appropriation, emergency medical services evaluation, county administration, doc ID 13556. And if I could get it moved, Shauna moves, Veronica seconds. Talk to it.
Pretty straightforward. Obviously, we had the approval to proceed with the study itself, but we needed to initiate a budget adjustment in order to fund the study. So that is what this resolution represents.
Okay. Questions, comments from the committee? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other reports from county administration?
No other report. Thank you.
All right. Let's see, we're up to the sheriff. And Jen, I believe you are representing the Sheriff's Department today.
Yes, yep. I don't have a whole lot to add besides answering any questions to our report. Just a couple of things that aren't on there is we had the deputy sheriff exam on the 20th of this month. We had 40 people attend to take that exam, which, is still kind of trending down compared to where it was a decade ago. But we're hopeful that we will get some good candidates out of that. Currently, we have 3 openings, so we would like to fill them as quickly as we can with good candidates that will, help provide public safety to our community. And another is October 12th, we will be conducting the Faith and Blue Pancake Breakfast again. It's where we partner with the Lansing United Methodist Church and the Business Leaders of Color to provide a free pancake breakfast. And that will be, again, the 12th of October at 10:45 at the Lansing United Methodist Church. And we're taking donations up until that point.
Okay.
And then I would just answer any questions that anyone has based on our monthly report.
I did notice the jail population numbers seem to be trending down a bit. I'm curious if they've held there.
So right now, you'll see there's 48 in-house, but we have unfortunately had to board out all of our female incarcerated persons because of our staffing levels. We had 2 female COs retire this month, and another one get promoted, and another one attend the basic academy. So right now we have 3 female corrections officers that are eligible to work the floor, so to speak. So we've had to make the unfortunate decision temporarily to house all of our female incarcerated persons just based on staffing. So, but yes, overall the numbers are kind of holding in the 50s, 60s.
Okay. And if I can put you on the spot, here I go. We have the letter of August 20th, 2025 from the Commission of Correction indicating some data on staffing in the jail.
Yes.
And one of the budget issues we're looking at is a request to add positions for corrections officers. And my understanding is that what New York State is saying, it's really not optional, that we need to do this to meet our New York State requirements. Is that the case?
Yes. So the commission came down and did a staffing analysis because one hadn't been done in some time. Previous to that, we've always operated at the very bare minimum total FTEs that we need to maintain the required post staffing that we've had. They came in and enhanced that and required an additional staff member on our day shift as well as an additional staff member on our overnight shift. So that's 2 additional posts. So that could not be done. It just cannot be done with the staffing levels that we currently have. So we are hopeful that we could do that with 2 additional COs with a manageable amount of overtime, just based on vacations and fringe time and 207C. We feel like 2 more COs would be the bare minimum that we could meet those requirements.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly doesn't make sense financially to try to do it through excessive overtime. You end up spending a lot more money, but this is a very tough budget year, as you know, to be adding positions.
I know, yeah, we could definitely appreciate that. And that's kind of, I know the sheriff spoke to it, is, we had to kind of approach it because 2 corrections officers wasn't supported by the county admin. So we had to ask for an increase in overtime in anticipation that it wasn't going to be supported. Obviously, if we are lucky enough to get the 2 additional COs, we would reduce the amount of overtime that we were asking for in hopes that they would be able to offset one another. But again, yes, just filling with overtime just causes retention issues and office morale issues. So I don't think it's doable.
Yeah, I was certainly going to say, from the standpoint of working in the jail and for the sake of the inmates, having adequate staffing is a far better situation. But Shauna.
Hi, Jen. I actually put in the amendment for the 2 corrections officers. Is there any way that you can send me a number that would be the difference, the delta of what you're thinking for the overtime if we are going to support the 2 corrections officers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can do that.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments for the sheriff? All right. Thank you. And thanks for all your input on Flock. That's helpful. We have a resolution, contingent fund appropriation, replacement pay and terminal pay reimbursement, Sheriff's Office, Doc ID 13550. Shauna moves, Veronica seconds. And this is the standard resolution for replacement pay and terminal pay. It is sometimes surprising to see the numbers from the Sheriff's Department because of the 207C numbers, but there it is. And
I would just say, normally we do this quarterly. We didn't do it last quarter, so this is for a full half of a year. So that's why the numbers may look a little larger.
I feel much better.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on the resolution? Are you ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. And I believe next up is our district attorney. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks. Just one final note about GIVE. I was involved in the initial grant application with the sheriff, and we did that because IPD at that point was not in the position to make the application, and it was something we thought was really valuable for the community. I don't get any money for my office from the GIVE grant. I go to the meetings myself, and they're once a month meetings that are updates and talking about the hotspots and the data that comes out of the GIVE program. So that's just a quick final note on GIVE. We have a lot of trials coming up between now and the end of the year. There's one starting on Monday that's going to be about 2 weeks. And from thereafter, almost every week or a couple a month until the end of the year.
Okay. And I see you have a resolution for a pathologist that
Yes.
you're going to need in your trials, in 2 trials, right?
Yes, that's right. And up until a point, whatever the contract we had as a county with the forensic pathologist included testimony, and it changed, I think in 2023 or just prior to that, because this is the second time I've had to do this kind of resolution. And this includes 2 different cases, both homicide cases, where his testimony is really critical to the prosecution of the case.
Yeah. The number doesn't strike me as out of the ordinary. This is reasonable, I think. So this is contingent fund appropriation, forensic pathologist for grand jury and trial proceedings, district attorney, doc ID 13567. Could I get a motion? Veronica moves. Shauna seconds. Questions or comments? Questions and comments? Hey.
I don't think it's a conflict, but Dr. Stophaker does perform autopsies on some of the cases that I have.
I see Maury Josephson's online. If we could put him on the spot for a second. I don't believe there's a conflict.
If they're homicides, then...
No, none yet, Matt.
Maury, sorry to catch you unawares perhaps, but Lee had a question regarding potential conflict of interest. Could you restate?
Yeah, I don't see it as a disqualifying conflict for him considering this issue in public.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything further on this? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. Well, Matt, good luck with your trials.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else you want to share with us?
I don't think so. Happy to answer any questions. I'll be at the FLOC meeting next week. So
thank you. Okay. All right. Next up, Department of Emergency Response. Michael, welcome.
Good afternoon. So Joe Millman is going to provide an update on some EMS education we did this month, and the only other thing I had to do is that we've made some significant headway in our new comprehensive emergency management planning, and next month we'll have some more information on that, but we're reviewing all the rough drafts now that we've been working with our vendor on, so we're pretty excited about the progress we've made this year. So.
Okay. Why don't we start out with any questions or comments on the report? Okay. I would note, it's interesting to me, month on month, the division of calls for service holds so steady that it's 3/4 law enforcement, 11% fire, and 15% ambulance, and it is that 10%, 15%, 75% split so consistently. I find that interesting. And I'd also note the growth in siren participation is really impressive month on month. And I'm wondering, are you doing something to market it? How is that happening?
We are. We've done several different campaigns. We've had banners on TCAP buses. We've had signage on roadways. Jeff Dunn does a great job as an ambassador to the program, pushing out the CPC programs that we've been doing and advocating for the use there. So we continue, and we're looking at it. Another part of the platform allows us to even have some special needs registry functionality as well, and we're looking at that. So that's going to be a whole nother cohort of the community that will be able to try to get onto the system and benefit from it.
Okay. And I had one other question before we get to the EMS stuff, which is you mentioned that you were looking at potential sites for a training facility.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could flesh that out just a little bit. That's pretty exciting.
Sure. So we've provided, 4 suggestions to county administration to review. So we've identified 4 potential properties. We haven't done site visits, but we have done a significant amount of research on those sites, and we've done this in partnership with our training group at Dewar. So I think we have a meeting scheduled Monday. Is that when I think it's Monday. Thursday, sorry.
Okay. EMS. I was very happy to read about the classes at TC3 and that the class is full. I was curious how many and how many on the waiting list.
To be honest with you, I don't know the exact numbers. I can get those from Upstate for next month for you.
Okay, but really good.
But yes, the EMT class is full again this semester, and there is a waiting list for people to be notified for the spring class.
Okay. Joe, do you want to just touch on the EMS training day that you did?
Yeah, so last Friday we did an EMS teaching day at TC3. I was in partnership with TC3, Upstate University, and CMC. We had 7 speakers that covered a variety of topics, and they presented to 20 individuals that came from across the area. They came from Tompkins, Cayuga, Onondaga, and as far away as Oswego counties, just for our teaching event. We're currently in the planning stages for the spring teaching day, which will be March 28th.
And when you say it's a teaching day, what's the purpose? Is it to engage with students to think about going through EMT training?
No, it's for current providers to get their continuing medication, continuing education. So it's a day that's just packed with a variety of topics that cover some of the requirements that we have to recertify our certifications every couple of years. One of the biggest complaints or concerns that I got from providers locally is there's never anything offered locally like that. They have to drive to Syracuse or Binghamton or even Rochester to get those type of courses. So I was able over the last couple of years to work with CMC and Upstate to plan this, and we reached out to TC3, who was happy to host it for us. And this was offered at no cost to our EMS providers locally to be able to get their continuing education hours.
No, that just sounds great. That seems to be a wonderful service that benefits every volunteer firefighting unit and EMS service in the county through, consolidated action. I think that's good county money spent. If we're spending, does that cost us much to do?
This year's, I believe, so Upstate covered the cost completely this year for us. Upstate and TC3 covered the cost. So it didn't cost the county any money. An average cost for a really well-planned with high-level speakers can run about $5,000 for the class. I believe this year's was close to $1,200.
Wonderful. Okay. Questions, comments from the committee? Anything? I do have one item I just wanted to make sure you are aware of. We spoke about this briefly, but I'm debating internally on offering a budget amendment to have us think further about the security funding and whether we want to try to do something at lower cost and with a different design. But I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that. I don't have a plan to present to you, but if you had comment on that, I'm sure.
Well, I think there's always opportunity for growth, and I think there's always opportunity to pivot. So I think we remain open-minded, to leadership guidance. We just started today a kickoff meeting at DSS. We're going to do a comprehensive security analysis there to see if they have the proper resources in their facility. So our kickoff was there today. So that might also provide us further insight on what our needs are going to be. They obviously have some pretty big needs down there. So I remain open to whatever conversations we need to have.
Yeah, again, I think we need to take all of these concerns very seriously. At the same time, again, we are in such a difficult budget year that it's very hard to add that many positions all at once. So we'll see where that goes. Shauna.
I did have a conversation with Norma this morning, and she's going to come up with a bit of a trimmed security plan for us. With the idea, I think the numbers that they had quoted that seemed a little bit higher did include DSS, and I think that some of those numbers they won't need to since they're not.
No.
Maybe I have it completely wrong.
Yeah, so the numbers that were included in our staffing plan included staffing at Brown Road, converting that, and that would be converting the part-time position. We had a hard time filling the part-time position for Green Street. So the 4.5 would be to convert the part-time position for Green Street to a full-time position, and then 2 full-time positions at Brown Road, and then making sure we have coverage for the legislature meetings. And we would be moving that staff around to help ensure that we had proper coverage for the screening. So DSS would be in addition to that, and that was more about centralizing all of the security resources under one umbrella. But in order to do that, we felt we really needed to do a comprehensive review of their needs. And again, we had a really great, productive kickoff meeting today. So it's really hard to know exactly what those needs are going to be until we finish that. And that our timeline for completion of that is December.
Thank you. Okay. Well, we'll talk further.
Okay.
All right. Anything further for us?
No, thank you.
All right. Veronica.
I have something, I guess this belongs here. I saw that TCOG just passed a resolution urging the governor to sign a particular bill, which I know, at least because I heard from one person who was excited about this, as small as it is. Didn't I have it? It was about, it was a state bill that would direct counties to create countywide EMS plans, which I think we're essentially already doing. I guess, could you speak to that? Is that true? And would this be something that would be helpful to have the legislature also urging?
Yes, I can speak to that. So this is already something that has momentum at the state level. So really this is just to gain support for something that's already being worked on. But exactly, we are doing that between the work we've done at Dewar and the work that CGR is doing. Some counties aren't doing that yet, but it's my understanding that what Albany is looking for is for comprehensive studies to be done and for plans to be done based on existing models.
I think what's interesting is whenever I went to the NISEC board meeting, there was some pushback because, of course, the counties think that the towns and local municipalities should be picking it up. So I'm not sure if NISEC's going to necessarily be on board. There was also, I think, Henchy supported one of the bills coming forward in the assembly, and it was interesting because it talked about, what was it, the counties shall, there was a big to-do about saying shall and may have a plan in place or something. It was like over a single word, the debate that took hours. So, and I think it didn't pass because no one could agree on it.
Interesting.
Well, part of the problem is that it's really a watered down version of the essential services bill. And so let's punt and have the counties make a plan or give us a report card, but it really doesn't move toward that designation of EMS as an essential service. And it still leaves the counties in a tentative position from what I can see.
Yeah.
But to Shauna's point, yes, I've heard from those at NISEC that there's some trepidation in supporting this.
And I think they were going to only allow counties like a 90-day window to turn in the plan. There was a turnaround that was really.
And it doesn't.
The one I'm looking at says 6 months.
Oh,
it's still not.
Oh, they changed it since NISEC
because
we were complaining as a board about 90 days being really short. So.
I look at something like that, and your plan could be as simple as we don't plan to do anything, and there's no teeth in it.
Yeah. Right.
I like to say doing nothing is something we do really well. But
here's our plan. We continue doing what we're doing.
I did, to what Lee said, I did look up at our legislature's resolution we passed last year that was supporting a whole bunch of EMS bills that I think you brought forward, Rich, and the last year's version of this one we're talking about now was in there that this legislature voted to support, although last year's version was not watered down yet. It was like counties make plans. Also, you can establish a special taxing district to fund it and maybe some other stuff. And now it's just, you have to make plans at the end.
Yeah, certainly no harm in planning, I guess. But in my view, it's coming that if we want real ambulance service, the counties are going to have to play a role that historically they haven't. And the state has to create an environment where you can do a funding model that's equitable, that the people in the community that are getting way better service under a county model should pay more for that, you know, and I guess there's lots of arguments around that, and certainly there's towns in Tompkins County that have resisted that vigorously. But for this to ultimately happen, I'm not sure how we do it otherwise. In our particular circumstance, I think we would really damage one private enterprise that is serving the middle of the county. You know, and we'd probably put them out of business, and it would just be a county program at that point. I don't know if that would be better. And all along I've said we don't want to just replace, we want to enhance. And I think we've done that with RMR. That's been real impressive, the results we've gotten. But again, this will be future legislature. I'm not going to have a hand in that, but I'll watch. I will watch. Yeah.
If I can add, having recently looked at some maps of our local ambulance services and where their responses are, it does kind of intuitively seem like the geographic space that any one, even the like just Trumansburg or just Dryden ambulances, the space they end up de facto covering is kind of county sized. And so it does seem natural to me, even if it wasn't the history of EMS, that county-centered EMS programs would maybe be more like structurally appropriate. If you could wave a wand and start from scratch, which you can't, I know there's always other considerations, but more so than individual town or village programs, because those, I mean, they're getting called out outside of the area they're supposed to serve anyway.
Well, certainly if it's purely a county system, and anybody correct me here, and you don't have other players, it's going to be really expensive. That ambulances don't make money. They can cut losses, but they don't generate profit. So if you're the only player, you're really looking at a financial commitment. So yeah, it's going to be hard. Yeah.
Good thing county government isn't a profit-making enterprise, and we don't have shareholders.
Well, we do in a way. We've got citizens and voters and residents, and they care, and they should be watching us. But anyway, that's an argument for another day.
Well, can I ask one way more specific question? Do you think it's helpful at all in the general fight for state support, or is there appetite for the legislature passing another resolution like the TCOG one, just urging the governor to sign this thing, or no?
I don't have that much excitement because we've done our resolution, and it was sort of the whole slate. What was the name for it? The whatever. But I think you need the state to move on a comprehensive level. It's, you know, it's, as Lee kind of said, it's not very exciting to say do a plan. I guess we could do one, you know, but I would, if we're going to do something, I'd say let's kind of relook at the resolution we did and do a real indication of this is what we want, totally. This is where we need to get to really be able to do a good ambulance service in our community.
I think if I were involved with it, I would be advocating that there be flexibility placed in state law that would allow counties or a combination or intermunicipal cooperation that would allow you to right size and fund accordingly through special districts.
May not shall.
Yeah, not necessarily place it all on a property tax burden, but allow the counties to fund it in alternative ways in order to address areas of need. And an all or nothing approach doesn't work when it comes to.
I agree with that. And maybe that's the basis for a resolution, is to provide a more nuanced call for, this is what we want these options, you know, but yeah, that might make sense. Yeah. Okay. Anything further for Department of Emergency Response?
Nope, not at the moment, thank you.
Okay, thanks for all you do. And we're up to our Probation Department, and I see Dan is with us. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich. Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for being late to this meeting. I was attending an information session on a grant possibility, so apologize for that.
Perfectly
Just
all right.
A few updates. I'm sorry.
Perfectly all right.
Thank you.
I think you might have come in during the discussion of the flock cameras, but it touched on the GIVE grant. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add on that.
I don't have anything to add as far as flock goes. We don't, the probation department is not involved with flock. We're up to 25 GIVE clients right now, which is 5% of our 500 people. We have exactly 500 people under supervision as of today. We anticipated prior months and years that number was going to continue to grow because people are put on probation for 3 years or 5 years when they're GIVE clients. And I'll stick with the estimate. I think we'll probably top out in a year or two with about 40 GIVE clients at any given time before the people who are currently on are getting off of probation. So I think it'll continue to slowly grow. Very thankful that the gun violence in our community seems to be negligible, and I think GIVE's made a positive impact in that regard. So just some other updates. I've been analyzing, this time of year we get what's called threshold reports from the Department of Criminal Justice Services, so we've been analyzing those. One of the things that sticks out for me is of all the counties in New York State, we're tied for 5th highest increase in adult supervision cases with 12.4%. So Tompkins County's probation clientele is the top 5 growth in the state of New York. The other counties are Lewis, Warren, Cattaraugus, and Seneca, and then we're tied with Franklin.
Do you have any sense of why that is?
I don't really know why that is. I mean, we definitely tend to utilize probation in this community to try and reduce our incarceration. And you know, I think that's a fine and most appropriate use of our resources. Also note that in a tough budget year, you know, during my 6-year tenure, we've lost 17% of our budget and currently are just trying to remain stable as our numbers increase. So just wanted to point out that our numbers are growing. Also would point out that 35% of our incoming cases classify as greatest risk or high risk, which requires them essentially to be assigned to a senior probation officer in a specialized caseload. Certainly is the case for our GIVE clients. So a third of our people are classifying at a higher risk level, which going back to our dashboard, which goes back to 2020, we're seeing an increase in the risk level of the people who are coming on, classifying higher than they used to in prior years. And correspondingly, we're seeing a reduced success rate in the clientele. So we're trying to analyze that. We're having more people discharged from probation unsuccessfully than we used to. Thankfully, we're above 50% as of today. 53% of our clients that have ended their probation term have ended it successfully, but in 2020, that was 75%. So there is a significant change that we're trying to analyze and find corrective measures for. so that we can provide people with supports they need to be successful on probation.
I guess I have a question, Dan, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but it didn't seem like there was any major change in your budget numbers. With what you just said, do you feel confident you can do what you need to do in 2026 with what you're going to get?
Yes, I believe that we'll be fine. I think we should just keep track of, future increases, which may impact the need for an additional staff member. But I feel confident that we're in good shape for 2026.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for providing what you provide.
Any questions? Go ahead.
The final thing was in Tompkins County, we provide pretrial services through the probation department. Some other jurisdictions have chosen to do that through not-for-profits or other agencies. So we're required to recertify periodically. The first 3 years we were given 1 year approval to continue, and then had to submit an application to continue again each year. We just received approval on the 17th of September that we don't have to recertify for 3 years. So they're recognizing the strength of our pretrial program and not asking us to.
Good news. All right. I was going to say, any questions or comments from the committee? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll keep moving. We have assigned counsel program. I don't know, do I see Lance there? I do not. Or, no? Okay. I didn't see anything in the packet, so I'm assuming there's no report from assigned counsel. Committee members' reports. Anything you want to share? Time to share. No? Okay. Any other business to come before the committee? I think we can stop early, which is an exciting thing on a beautiful day. Got to get a motion to adjourn. Veronica moves, Shauna seconds. All those in favor, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.